Krispy Kreme is such a compelling story that always seems to have something major happening. I think you will agree that these donuts are pretty well liked. I've heard people praising them for most of my life. In fact, when I made a video about Krispy Kreme over 7 years ago, many of the top comments were extremely positive. On the surface, just looking at all these great assets they have been working with for so long, I would expect Krispy Kreme to be much more successful at this point. People love these donuts, they want to see the company succeed, yet every time it seems like it is on the verge of scaling up in a big way and becoming that next national brand, everything starts falling apart. Like right now, for example, things do not seem promising. Despite doubling their sales since I made that last video, they have consistently struggled to turn a profit. In 2021, they became a public company for the second time, by the way, trading around $21 per share at the end of their first day. Well, that price has since fallen over 80%, with most of the decline occurring in 2025, causing them to pause their quarterly dividend. Overall, Krispy Kreme has been struggling probably more than you would expect, right? And I truly believe that it has been a complex combination of factors contributing to it. So in this video, I'm going to cover a lot of stuff as I outline what I believe to be 8 of the biggest reasons behind these struggles. Starting off the list with moving too slow. There are so many ways that we can look at this, but consider that Krispy Kreme originated in the 1930s, predating Dunkin' Donuts and Tim Hortons and likely any other sizable chain that you can think of. I mean, they even spell the word donut the old-fashioned way as opposed to the simpler way without that UGH that almost everyone else uses at this point. In the decades leading up to the 1990s, Dunkin' Donuts opened thousands of locations across the country, while Krispy Kreme opened, I believe, around 100 of them throughout select parts of the Southeast. Now, I want to be clear that there is nothing wrong with being a regional Southern brand, but if the goal is to enter new markets all over the country, the ideal time to do it would have been before the others were already established in those markets. So for almost 60 years, Krispy Kreme took it slow and allowed their competitors to take the lead. My next reason on the list is going to be the exact opposite, moving too fast. Throughout the 1990s, Scott Livingood became more and more powerful within the company, becoming president in 1992, CEO 6 years later, and chairman of the board 1 year after that. His big plan when he took over was to aggressively open restaurants in new areas around the country, which I know already seems risky, but at first things were looking pretty good. Krispy Kreme quickly gained a cult-like following, with everyone telling their friends about this great new donut place that they had found. However, as it became more popular, it kind of lost that novelty feeling. I think people felt that it wasn't cool anymore now that everybody knew about it. Also, with such a rush to open these new donut shops, it can be difficult to ensure that you are opening them in the right areas. It takes a lot of research that does not seem like it was properly conducted, considering that they were criticized for oversaturating certain markets while ignoring others. It was also reported around that time that they were loaning money to their franchisees, suggesting that the demand in these areas was not at the level it needed to be for them to be profitable, leading me right into my next reason, high costs. I would argue that the main appeal of Krispy Kreme is that their donuts are made fresh in the restaurants. In the 1930s, when Vernon Rudolph opened that first bakery, he would mainly sell donuts to local stores. He would also sell them directly to the public if people dropped by while he was making them, but it started out as much more of an afterthought. But over time, they started putting that neon sign outside to let people know when they were freshly made, and even installed windows so customers can watch them being made. But I have to question, as far as the business they're trying to conduct, if all of it is really worth it. Just imagine how much more complicated it is to open a Krispy Kreme compared to a Dunkin' Donuts. Consider the cost of that machinery and the space requirements. Since Dunkin' Donuts can more easily squeeze into a high population area, I would say it has been almost impossible to compete with them in terms of convenience. Currently, Krispy Kreme has around 350 stores in the US, not too far off of their peak, while Dunkin' Donuts is approaching 10,000. I also want to mention here that Krispy Kreme opened a flagship 4,500 square foot store in Times Square in 2020. 2020, so not the best timing there. But in recent years, Krispy Kreme has shifted their strategy to try to take better advantage of all these, well, essentially donut factories that they have scattered all around the country. It is kind of a throwback to how they started, where they make the donuts at the shops and then deliver them to nearby stores and restaurants who then sell them to their customers. They call it delivered fresh daily, and I'm going to put that as the next reason on my list. There are obvious advantages here in that it raises sales and makes the donuts more available, but I have it as a potential negative here because it just does not seem profitable unless there is massive demand for the product and it is done on a massive scale. They made a deal with Walmart to deliver fresh donuts daily to, I believe, about a quarter of their locations, which is a really big deal, but each of those Walmarts have to sell a lot of donuts each day to make it all worth it. And seeing those donuts being made along with the smell is all part of the experience Krispy Kreme is known for that does not translate when you pick up a box of them from Walmart. In 2024, they announced a big partnership with McDonald's where they would deliver fresh donuts to almost all US McDonald's locations to be sold to McDonald's customers by the end of 2026. However, after making them available at only 2,400 of the 13,000 plus locations, they announced that they were ending the partnership, essentially because demand for the donuts was not high enough to make the arrangement profitable. And this whole situation has led to a class action lawsuit from Krispy Kreme investors, alleging that executives from the company misled them into believing that the demand was higher than it actually was. So overall, you can understand why I am skeptical as to whether or not this delivered fresh daily concept is a great direction for them. I mean, they have some of the country's biggest companies like Walmart and McDonald's willing to work with them, and they still cannot find a way to make money from it. Yet again, we can see that they're making a lot of sacrifices in favor of freshness. Next up on my list is an accounting scandal. When the company had its first public offering in the year 2000 to raise $63 million that would fund further expansion, it stood out as being one of the best performing stocks on the market. However, it was later exposed that certain figures, specifically in 2004, may have been manipulated to mislead investors into believing that the company was doing better than it was. There was an SEC investigation, shareholders were suing the company, they had to restate some of their reports, and overall, it was a big deal. It caused their stock price to tank, it hurt their reputation for a while, and was likely a contributor to falling sales and profits in the years after it was exposed. And in addition to all of this, Scott Livingood was dismissed from the company and later ordered to pay fines related to it along with two other top executives, giving me the perfect transition into the next reason on my list, changing leadership. And I will admit this is more of a high-level reason. I just want to point out that the founder of the company passed away in the 1970s, and in the 50+ years since then, I would not say that the company has been stable or consistent. I don't think it would be worth it to go through the whole timeline here, but I want to convey that there have been multiple owners and leaders throughout that time with mixed results, many of which have implemented changes different from the leaders before, but none of them elevating the company too much higher than it was when they started. Most recently, in the middle of 2025, it was announced that their chief financial officer and their chief growth officer would be leaving the company. Going back to the list, with a much more concrete reason, bad investments. In 2003, they bought an upper-class bakery chain in the Northeast called Montana Mills for $40 million, and then recorded a $34 million loss when they sold it less than 2 years later. Going back to that accounting scandal around that time, there was also some sketchiness involving a couple franchisees that were acquired. There were executives from Krispy Kreme that had personal connections to them, so it was alleged that the conflict of interest led to an overpayment, which obviously would have been a bad investment. And more recently, along the same lines, they have bought a bunch of franchisees to gain more control as they switch over to the delivered fresh daily approach. In the beginning, when I said that their sales have doubled since my last video, well, a big part of that increase is because they have since acquired, I believe, about half of their locations from franchisees. Sales have gone up because they are now the ones selling those donuts, but considering that they are doing it to support a plan that is questionable, it makes the investment questionable. Overall, in my own opinion, Krispy Kreme has not made the best decisions when it comes to investing their money. Finally, this is a debated reason, but I feel it deserves to be on the list. I'm just going to call it unhealthy. Yeah, I'm sure that you already know that donuts are filled with carbs and fats and sugar, so anyone looking to improve their health would probably want to stay away from Krispy Kreme, and any other donut shop for that matter. But I would argue that Krispy Kreme has been comparatively more affected by these unhealthy elements than potentially anyone else. Historically, Dunkin' Donuts and Tim Hortons and maybe all of the other big donut donut chains have placed a comparatively greater emphasis on selling coffee. I mean, I still call it Dunkin' Donuts, I guess out of habit, but in 2018, they officially removed the word donuts from their name. Krispy Kreme, on the other hand, is all about donuts. I can't imagine that anyone thinks about coffee when they think about Krispy Kreme. Their mission statement that you can find on their website is to make the most awesome donuts on the planet every single day. In the mid-2000s, right when Krispy Kreme was dealing with the effects of their overexpansion and their accounting issues, a lot of people in the US started following low-carb diets. In early 2004, a study suggests that around 9% of the country was on Atkins or something similar. At the time, Krispy Kreme cited that as the main source of their issues, which obviously oversimplifies it, but since they were already vulnerable, I can completely understand how that could have made a bad situation even worse for them. To summarize, it has been a wild combination of factors that have brought down the Krispy Kreme brand over the years. In the end, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that it is difficult to make money by simply selling fresh donuts, unless it is on a large scale and there is an incredible demand for them, neither of which has been the reality for Krispy Kreme. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about Krispy Kreme? My guess is that most of you do believe that it is a great tasting donut, but would typically prefer to buy a cheaper or more convenient option. Tell me if that is the case for you, and also, do you agree with my list of reasons behind their struggles, or do you think something should be added or subtracted from it? I realize that I've been covering a lot of different stuff in this video, but like I said in the beginning, it is a compelling topic because so much has happened. And any other thoughts you have about Krispy Kreme, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.